Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge.
And I'm Ashley Sledge.
And let's talk horror.
So today we're going to review Lovely, Dark, and Deep. We're going to give you some positives, some negatives, and then we're going to spoil the film for you.
But for those of you that don't want to be spoiled, we are going to give you a non-spoiler synopsis of the film. Lennon, a new backcountry ranger, travels alone through the dangerous wilderness, hoping to uncover the origins of a tragedy that has haunted her since she was a child. So in order to talk about that, we do got to get into the positives of the film. So let's talk about some positives of Lovely, Dark, and Deep.
So we have to talk about Georgina Campbell when we're talking about positives because she's one of the biggest positives of the film for me. She's Lennon. She is naturally beautiful, and she's just such a great actress. She's definitely coming into her own in horror, and I'm really beginning to love her a lot.
And for those of you that haven't seen this, she also played as Tess in Barbarian.
She did.
So another film that Ash and I were very, very high on. The aerial shots during the opening of this film are amazing looking. The drone shots. Ashley's a huge sucker for those. So watching this, I looked right at her like, I know you're going to say something positive about these because you love them so much.
Yeah, so, it was really awesome. I like those, especially how like they're doing it upside down. Right. Like it's really cool.
Yes.
Also the scenery. It's in the national park. You have the mountains and you see the sky, and it's so visually pleasing and it's very beautiful.
The waterfalls and the trails.
We're big on trails and walking into the forest and stuff, so that's like right up our alley.
Exactly. Now like I said, we are going to have a spoiler section of this, but we are going to talk about some scenes that we do like that are spoiler-ish. So there's a tent scene that makes your anxiety go through the roof, and it was one of the better scenes in the film to me. Can't get too deep into it at this moment. We will later, but I feel like the tent scene was one of the more positive parts of the movie.
Yeah. So we have 3 rules. It's leave nothing but footprints, take nothing but memories, and kill nothing but time. You're out in the wilderness. You don't want to kill the animals, and just make these memories. Like this is something that people want to be this.
Yeah. And you don't want to take away from the woods either.
Right. You don't want to take away from the woods. So yeah, I like the 3 rules.
Yeah, you make sure you follow those 3 rules and you'll be just fine. This really does blend the line of fantasy and reality throughout the film. You don't know at certain points what perspective you're seeing it from.
Yeah.
If you're seeing it from a fantasy or a reality point of view. And I love how they seamlessly transition through these. They don't need to hold your hand and go, well, now you're seeing it in a fantasy part. This is in the imagination. The seamlessness that they do these scenes, I think they weave together very, very well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They have some really great practical effects too. We're always we like practical effects more. Yeah. Usually.
So. And this is a movie where they really. You couldn't use a lot of CGI in a film like this.
Well, no, I mean it's out. You're out in the back country, so yeah.
And there's another scene. I feel like comfortable talking about this because it is in the trailer, but you see a woman who we later find out is Sarah climbing down the tree in the background. Very creepy. It's very subtle. It doesn't focus on her, but you know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so that scene to me is just like. It's a background thing that's happening, and they don't put any attention onto it when you first see it, but you know something's going on, and then you know who it is right when you see it too. You're like, oh, that's got to be Sarah. So another scene that sometimes what you can imagine is worse than what you see.
Yeah.
And the imagination of what's happened to Sarah, thank God we never get any clarity on that. Is scarier than what you could possibly see.
Absolutely. And then just the anxiety of losing a child or a loved one in the woods and not being able to find them and having to have a search party like that definitely plays on one of my fears. And I know that's a big fear for anybody, when you take your kids out for a walk in the woods, like, or any loved one for that matter, you're calling for them and you can't find them. Like that's scary. I feel like that definitely plays on a fear.
And especially with how real it is.
Yeah.
How many people get lost when they go for hikes or when they go, backpacking, and, the amount of people that don't come back home. So this is a real fear that they played on very well in this film. It was led by females, and Georgina Campbell, she stole the show. She carried the whole movie on her back, essentially.
She did a phenomenal job.
And she absolutely killed it. So those are some of our positives, but of course there's no perfect movie. So now we're going to talk about some of our negatives of the film. Okay, so obviously, like I said, there's no such thing as a perfect movie. So we are going to talk about some of the things that we didn't like as much. It does have a very slow-moving first act, and I don't mind a slow-moving first act if you're building up your characters, letting me get to know them, get to love them. Does very little character development throughout the first half, and some of the film borders on almost boring at points. There's points where you're like, okay, let's see something happen here now. And I get building suspense, I get that, but there are instances where you can overbuild and lead to nothing. And there are certain moments in this film where they overbuild the suspense for no reason.
Yeah, and also they use a lot of the same past events. Like they go back to the same cut, and it's like they overuse it almost, like too much. Like, and it's just this one scene. Well, there's a couple of them, but it's like the same thing over and over. And it's like, what's going on here? Like, what?
You never even get closure on what it is.
Yeah,
either.
like why do we keep going back to this? Like, what is going on exactly? So.
And while you're talking about those scenes, there's a couple of the shots in specific that are just recycled, and they keep using that same shot over and over and over again, and you're like, a flashback going back to the same point in time. Maybe they change a little something here and there so it doesn't look like this is the exact same shot being used over and over again, and you're just like, that's extremely unnecessary, especially because the shot that we're talking about doesn't lend anything for the rest of the film.
It has nothing to do with, well, I mean, other than it's just trees, but yeah.
But it lends nothing to the plot of the film. So that's another thing that really bothered us, was the overusage of the same shot over and over and over again.
It, like, maybe show us more the farther we get into the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
You start with this much of a flashback that goes to this much, and then it wraps up.
Like, give us more, not the same thing over and over.
Right.
There's some bad CGI blood at parts.
The bathtub.
Yeah, I hate CGI blood so much. I've said this a million times, but it's definitely not my favorite. So we had to put that on the negatives.
The reason I could live with this is because, we'll talk about it in the spoilers, but, yeah, the CGI blood in the bathroom is pretty bad. I thought the twist was quite predictable in this movie. I always talk about when I go into a movie like this, I'm trying to figure out the ending. And while I couldn't figure out the ending, the twist part of it, I thought was pretty predictable. They gave the twist away pretty early if you were watching and paying attention. It doesn't take away from the ride of the film. Yeah, I still had a good ride with the film, but the twist was, if it was trying to be a twist, it didn't land very well for me.
Yeah. And then we get, like we said, we get these past scenes with her family. And I feel like it explains the mom and the sister pretty well, but the dad, like, I'm not sure what's going on there with the dad. Like,
what was his true fate?
Yeah, like what really happened with dad? And I feel like that should have been explained a little better.
Yeah. And again, that's something we will definitely talk about in the spoilers, but the last thing, there's a lot that gets left unanswered at the end of the film. We've talked about this before. You don't have to wrap everything up in a pretty little bow for us, but to blatantly leave ends open, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ends that were purposely left open. I don't see them creating a sequel for this. I think they have an idea that could be great for a sequel. The sequel almost writes itself, especially if you can get Georgina to come back in this. If you can get Lennon to come back and reprise her role and how the movie ends to carry that on into the sequel, I think it could be a phenomenal sequel. I think it could really, really work. But there's a lot of questions that are just pretty much left unanswered in a movie that doesn't look like it would be going towards a sequel. So those are some of our negatives of the film. Now we're going to talk about some of our positives and negatives, but we're also going to spoil the film. So you have been warned. We are now going to spoil this film starting now.
Alright guys, now we're going to spoil some things. So there's a moment where you have a walkie, Lennon uses a walkie, and she takes the batteries out of it because she thinks the batteries are dead.
She can't hear what they're saying on the other end.
It's like, so
really,
she thinks like gargled.
Yeah.
So she takes the batteries out of it, and the walkie starts working again. There's no batteries in it. She looks at it, and like, oh, did I put the batteries back in? No, there's no batteries in it. So that was a very creepy moment.
In my head, because of my favorite films, this is a total homage to my boy, Chucky.
Yeah.
This is a Child's Play 1 homage, because the way she looks back at it is just like when Karen picks up Chucky's shirt and there's no batteries in the good guy doll.
How the hell is this working without the batteries?
I was like,
yeah,
they did it.
I agree with that.
So we talked earlier about the strength and importance of family in the film. Lennon's sister went missing when she was a kid, and that's why she became a ranger. Now, we're going to say something right now that we don't mean in any type of disrespect, but if you've seen the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, this movie really does remind you of all the minor scenes with him and his brother getting lost. Now, we know this was written before that. It's just a coincidence that those things happened. This could realistically be the exact same scenario. This could be the exact same park where that happened in the long run. But having just seen Five Nights at Freddy's, it's really hard not to make the connection between how similar these two movies are with that, especially that brother, sister story. And again, I'm not comparing it. This is its own movie. I'm not saying this ripped off Five Nights at Freddy's. It definitely did not. But the similarities are 100% there.
So you have a scene where she's in her little cabin at night and she has this man come up to her door like needing help, and then he's like, please, like, come now. She's like, I gotta get my shoes on, and he runs off. So she chases him without her shoes on, and she finds him, and his arm is like, it's unsettling. It's just like, it's broken, and it just looks so gnarly.
It looks like a squid tentacle is the way that I word it. Like, but one of my favorite lines is when she catches up, he's like, she was there and then she was gone. Like, I just love the line delivery at that moment.
Because, I mean, how many other times have you seen, like, a news broadcast or something, like, I turn my back for a second, and they're gone. Yeah, like that, again, goosebumps. Like, that is playing on your fears.
Right. There's a great scene that I really like a lot. We talked earlier about how they weave things. There's a scene where Lennon is searching for a woman named Sarah that we talked about earlier. It's this guy's wife or girlfriend. We don't know. And simultaneously, we're watching them search for her sister Jenny in the past. So it's intercutting between the two moments seamlessly. And the intertwine of this scene is fantastic. And it ends with adult Lennon holding child Lennon's hand. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
You have this moment of, we've come together, we're searching right now for the exact same thing. Which ends up, she was told not to go searching for Sarah.
Right.
But...
yeah, so, I mean, also, like, she keeps yelling Sarah, and then finally she says Jenny as an adult. So, yeah, I love that, too.
Yes.
So when she does find Sarah, I guess I don't really know what happened to her, but it's just...
she's bleeding down there.
It's a very dark scene. It does make you feel a little uncomfortable.
The implications of what possibly has happened to her, it never says, thank God.
Yeah. We
never find out that anything like SA did happen, but the implications of it are quite clear.
Yeah, and
that
she's all like,
Are you real?
Are you real? Like, she's very frazzled and doesn't know between reality and what's not real.
Well, at the beginning of the movie, Lennon's seen Mr. and Mrs. Finley, who she's obviously very close with. We don't know the extent of how close they are or why, but...
they said, that's our favorite ranger.
Our favorite ranger.
They're so sweet.
Well, she has fallen and hit her head, Lennon, and she's looking for him, and she sees him, and she's trying to talk to him, like, hey, and they can't see her. Well, she keeps living this moment over and over, and then she sees herself talking to him, and she's like, all you got to do to keep your gun good is clean the barrel and clean this. And then she turns around and shoots Mrs. Finley in the face. And it is, I'm watching this, and, like, usually it takes a lot for me to be surprised.
Yeah.
I was surprised the direction they went, because then you have her husband screaming, like, no, and he's trying to help her. And then it goes to another scene, another version of this reality, and her husband is eating her insides.
Yeah.
Like, just literally tearing out of her stomach and eating her insides. This felt so out of place when I was watching the movie at this moment, but I was so enthralled. Like, what are we doing? Like, is this all in her head? Has she bumped her head? Obviously not.
Well, also, when she's talking to the other ranger, her neighbor, she's like, I'm not crazy. So, like, I don't know. Like, there's, like, this mixture of things that's happening.
Because she's like, I know how rumors are, which we come to understand as her sister getting kidnapped. But we never understand, like, why they think she's crazy. Maybe because she came back to work the same place. But you never get any clarification on what happened with Jenny. We know that she went missing. We know that she was never found. We find that out, but we don't know the full implications of what happened to her.
Yeah. She also, Lennon, she's a very, like, nervous. She's constantly biting her nails and stuff. And we have this scene where she is going back to her childhood home, and her mom is sitting at the table, and she is just tearing the skin off of her fingers.
So gross.
And you have the skin in her mouth, and it's like the whole entire thing. So you see where Lennon gets her nervous tick from.
Yes.
But mom, she went over the top a little bit in this flashback, but...
And we talked earlier about the CGI blood in the bathtub. Now, with her dad, she walks in and finds her dad in the bathtub, and he says, "Don't worry, baby, this is just a dream." And he takes a knife out and stabs himself in the chest. And you see the CGI blood moving around. The reason it doesn't bother me is because I feel like this is her trying to live through that moment of her actually seeing her father take his own life.
Yeah.
Because he says this is just a dream. So I think that his daughter caught him in the act when she was a kid. And he was like, don't worry, it's just a dream. You're going to wake up and everything's going to be fine. Because he didn't have the fortitude to say, oh my gosh, my daughter just walked in and seen this. I need to stop and pull myself together for the kid I have here still.
Right.
But moments like that, it's a good movie. This is a good movie. This could have been a great movie.
Yeah.
It really did miss the mark in certain areas. A lot of the stuff they did to keep replaying really just like really tore at me because I knew this was going to be a good movie. I was anticipating a great movie.
Yeah.
But it could have been great.
So the ending, it definitely is messed up. It kind of got me thinking, like, why though? Like,
I know
why.
And I'm going to say it right off the top. We are not going to tell you what happened at the end.
We're not going to say what happened at the end.
This is a spoiler thing, but we're not going to spoil the main part because I'm telling you, the end is dark.
It is very dark.
And it's fucked up.
And you're just like,
and you're like, why?
Yeah, like
why would you do
you
that?
went this entire movie against this, but it is.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anymore.
I personally, the ending brought it up a full half point for me. Just because the ending is so dark and fucked up and made me go, like I did not look. I called the twist.
Yeah.
I called that pretty quickly, but what happens at the end when it gets wrapped up, I did not see that coming.
Yeah,
like you could have told me it was coming. I'd been like, no way. There's not a chance that's gonna happen. So overall, I'm actually gonna give this 2.5 out of 5. I think that this is a very good movie. I know people, 2.5. That's a good score for me, guys. 2.5, I think this is a very, very good movie. And it was catapulted up by Georgina Campbell. A lot of the supporting cast is great, but the movie revolves around her. It's pretty much a one-woman show, and she carries this on her back like a champion. And you've seen Barbarian, a lot of the times where she's in the house or in the stuff by herself, she's great at carrying scenes on her own. And this is no different. But like I said, there are a lot of moments in this movie that I personally would have done a little bit different. So I got to be objective and I got to be honest. I like the movie a lot. I didn't love it. But it's a movie I wouldn't mind sitting down to watch again.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. Like you said, Georgina Campbell, she is really great. Yeah. And I like just the way, like she's a facial actor and just the way I don't know. She's just such a...
when she has fear on her face, it is real.
And she's so just like naturally beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And there is really, it plays on your fears. There's no way in hell I would be walking in the backcountry by myself at night with just a flashlight. Like that made my anxiety. It definitely made my amped up my anxiety.
And you can see that because she does have a firearm, but she doesn't want it. She's not a fan of that firearm. Even at the tent scene we talked about earlier, there's somebody outside her tent, and you could see by the silhouette that it's not human. It's not normal. Yeah. I have a gun in here. I can protect myself. Oh, you can? Yeah. You don't seem like you're very ready for that. And like the crazy guy, like she runs after him barefoot. She has a firearm the whole time, but she's like, nope, I'm gonna chase this guy. I'm gonna figure out what's going on with him. So
yeah. And the scenery it's so pretty.
Oh, the whole movie's beautiful.
I would love to go just walk through that wherever that is. So yeah.
I would love for you to walk through that too.
Yeah.
Just kidding. So again, I think this is a movie that's definitely worth your time. It is now available in theaters and on VOD at the time of release. Obviously, a little later on, it won't be in theaters anymore, but will still be available on VOD. So once you guys watch it, let us know in the comments. What do you think of the ending? Please don't spoil it, but let us know. Thumbs up or thumbs down on the ending. What are your thoughts on a potential sequel? Do you think that it would be able to be carried in the sequel the way that it ended? I think there's potential for a sequel to be even better than the original. By stuff getting passed down and passed on. And see, sometimes you just owe the land a body. Why? Why do you owe the land a body? You're going to have to watch the movie and find out. So if you haven't already, guys, please like and subscribe. It helps build the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. Our links are down in the description as well. But until next time, keep talking horror.
Stay who you are.
And we'll see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.